22 weeks pregnant, time running out, denied by the courts. She had only days left to make the most important decision of her life. The law was against her, society was watching, but she wasn't giving up. This is the story of one woman's fight for control over her body and her future. In the summer of 2022, a young woman from Manipur residing in Delhi faced an unimaginable situation. She learned that she is pregnant. Ultrasound scan revealed that intrauterine pregnancy of a term of 22 weeks, later on abandoned by the boyfriend. She had just days before she would be legally barred from terminating her pregnancy. Her future and her body were no longer her own, trapped by the ticking clock of an unforgiving legal system. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, or MTP, was meant to protect women. But for her, it was a cage. As an unmarried woman, the law didn't recognize her situation. She is the eldest amongst 5 siblings, and her parents are agriculturists. She holds a BA degree, and in the absence of a source of livelihood, she would be unable to raise and nurture a child. Time was running out. At 22 weeks, the law would say no. Desperate, she turned to the High Court of Delhi, hoping for mercy. But the doors of justice were slammed shut. The High Court said she didn't qualify, because the categories mentioned in the MTP Act of women shall be considered eligible for termination of pregnancy for a period of up to 24 weeks. 1. Survivors of sexual assault or rape or incest. 2. Minors. 3. Change of marital status during the ongoing pregnancy, widowhood and divorce. 4. Women with physical disabilities. 5. Mentally ill including mental retardation. 6. The fetal malformation that has substantial risk of being incompatible with life. 7. Disaster or emergency situations as may be declared by the government. She wasn't raped, she wasn't a minor, she wasn't married, she wasn't mentally ill, or she does not have any physical disabilities. She was simply an unmarried woman with a failed relationship and no support. But she wouldn't give up. With only days left, she took her fight to the Supreme Court. The stakes couldn't be higher. If they didn't act fast, she'd lose the right to choose her own future and be forced to bear the child. The Supreme Court had no time to lose. Her pregnancy had already reached the 24-week mark, beyond the legal limit. Her future now hung in the balance of one final decision. Would they interpret the law as written, or would they recognize the reality of her situation? Was her fight over before it even began? In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court would twist the narrow confines of the law to bring it in line with the Constitution. They recognized that reproductive rights were not just for the married. They belonged to all women, regardless of relationship status. The distinction between married and unmarried women is irrelevant when it comes to a woman's right to her own body and her right to choose. Denying an unmarried woman the right to a safe abortion violates her personal autonomy and freedom. The court has reaffirmed that a woman's right to make decisions about her reproductive health, including the choice to terminate a pregnancy, is a fundamental aspect of her personal liberty and privacy, as guaranteed under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. The judgment underscores that any restrictions on a woman's reproductive autonomy must respect her dignity, bodily integrity, and mental well-being. Forcing a woman to carry an unwanted pregnancy to term would violate her constitutional rights. Furthermore, the court ruled that any laws or actions that impose undue restrictions on these rights are unconstitutional and void. The ruling was a victory not just for the petitioner, but for women across the country. It was the Supreme Court's recognition that personal liberty and bodily autonomy transcend marital status. But not everyone saw it that way, and some called it a dangerous precedent. Others called it a triumph for women's rights. Her fight was over, but the battle for reproductive rights in India continues. Each case, each woman adds to the story of justice or the lack of it. As the laws evolve, so too does the question: who controls a woman's body, herself or the state? The story is far from over. Around the world, the fight for reproductive freedom rages on. What will you do when the clock starts ticking? Who will you stand with? For more stories on justice, freedom, and the fight for rights, hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to turn on notifications for our latest videos.